So back at JSBin, for this module, I'll use a service named JSON Placeholder. And you can find more about it at jasonplaceholder.typeicode.com. And basically what this is, it allows you to simulate web requests or send web requests to the server, and it will give you back some dummy data, and that is of course great for testing. Now sometimes it has some performance issues, this test service, but it's free, and hey, just give it some time and it'll work. So how do we create such a request? I'll create a variable and I'll name it HTTP. And I'll create a new XML HTTP request, and that's just the name of this request object. And as already mentioned, it's not only there for sending or getting XML, that's just an historic name, or the name is like that for historic reasons. So that creates this request, but it isn't sent yet. I'll next add a variable with the URL, and here I'll point to the service I was just mentioning, and this service has several API endpoints you may access. For example, it has this posts endpoint, and you can just visit this web page and find more information about available API endpoints. So this will be the URL I'll send the request to, and I'll also specify the HTTP method I want to use. Get in this case, since I will send a GET request. Now with that, I can wire these things up. I'll take my HTTP object, so this XML HTTP request object here, and I'll open a connection. This open method then requires at least two arguments, the method which should be used and the URL. You may specify more arguments, and you can find out more in the XML HTTP request article on the Mozilla Developer Network, where you will find all the available properties and methods, and also explanations on how to set everything up. There's also another article on the Mozilla Developer Network which detailedly describes how to use an XML HTTP request, and you'll of course find both links to both articles in a cheat sheet attached to this module. So with that, you open this request, but still it's not sent. It's kind of open and prepared, but it hasn't been sent yet. Next, you probably want to do something once the request comes back. So you will want to listen to that. Here we have the onReadyStateChange event handler here, and I'll add a function here to handle this event. And then in here, I can, do whatever I want to once this request finished successfully, or also unsuccessfully. You could get an error. So I will check this first. I will check if the ready state, that's another built-in property here, equals XML HTTP request done. That's just a static field I can use to check. Because ready state will just be, and I can show you this in the official documentation here, will just be a number, 0 to 4. And as you can see, it's either unsent, opened, headers received, loading, or done. We want to check if it's done, so we could also just check if it's equal to 4, but XML HTTP request.done simply returns 4. It's just a more literal or verbal way to describe this. But it being done isn't everything. I also want to check if it was successful. So I'll use a Boolean AND operator, and then I will check if the status, another property, equals 200, which of course is the HTTP status code for OK. If that is the case, then I want to print the data I got back, and I can access the data I got on my HTTP object here, and then the response text. So this will be the body of my response. I can also specify an else if condition here, where I want to set up, the condition to handle the case that I got an error. So I still want to check if it's done, but if it is done, then I want to check if it's unlike status, so if the status code is unlike 200. In this case, I would simply print out error. Now with that, what do you think will happen if I hit run? Nothing does happen because I'm not sending it. I opened it and I set up what I want to do if I get back data, but I'm not sending the request. So this is the final step I have to do here. I have to send it. Now if I hit run, let's see what happens. You should get back a response like this. These are just some dummy posts, and what you get back here is JSON, so it looks like a JavaScript object and it can be used as such. It's just a string representation of such an object. And this is a common format to send data. So to take JavaScript objects and turn them into strings, you recognize this by the escaping slashes here, for example, around the quotation marks. So to take JSON to send data. And this is the data we got back and which we could now use. And imagine this were a real list of posts, then you could, well, extract the data here and use it throughout your application. So for the example, as these are dummy posts here and it is JSON data we get here in the end, so it is a JavaScript representation, what we can do is we can call JSON parse on our response text here. Let's see what happens now if I hit run. Now you see it's no longer just a string, it actually got transformed into JavaScript objects, which you now can use. So now you can simply access the title or something like that. So since this is an array of objects, we could just access the, let's say, first object or the first element with an index of 0, so this object here, and then print the, well, let's say the ID, so which should be 1. So like this. If I now hit run, you see 1. So this is how this works, how you can use the data you get back and how you can send requests. And as I explained, this allows you to create web applications where you load dynamic content and display it in your application.